On first impression, you might think that Kisuke Urahara is a goofy shopkeeper, a lovable mentor figure who guided Ichigo and cracked jokes at the worst possible moments. It's hard not to think this with Urahara's eccentric personality, his appearance with the fan, the clogs, the shadow cast over his eyes, and then there's the signature bucket hat. But this is just the surface of Urahara's character, as he has done an exceptional job of fooling everyone. Underneath that laid-back persona isn't some noble protector who's working for the greater good. He's a scientist driven by an insatiable hunger to create, discover, and open new doors regardless of what horrors might be waiting on the other side. And this isn't speculation, this is Urahara's own words. In the Can't Fear Unworld light novels, Urahara makes a confession that should change how we view him. He tells Yoruichi that he never created the Hokyoku for any higher purpose. It wasn't to save the Vizard or to fix the Soul King situation, and it wasn't for the betterment of reality itself. He created the Hokyoku in order to satisfy his own curiosity. He even goes on to say that fundamentally he is no different from Mayuri Kurotsuchi, the psychopath who tortures and experiments on living beings without remorse. Before his exile, Urahara didn't just serve the Gotei 13, he built a fundamental part of it. He was the founder of the Shinigami Research and Development Institute. Every piece of technology that the Soul Society relies on in the modern era traces back to infrastructure that he established. The Can't Fear Unworld light novels bluntly describes Urahara's power. It isn't in raw spiritual pressure, but it's in building the systems that let everyone else survive. Then there's Ichigo. People credit Aizen with orchestrating Ichigo's birth, but that's half right. Aizen sent the Hollow White to attack Isshin. This eventually caused Masaki to be infected. But when Masaki was dying from hollification, when a hole was literally forming in her chest and her soul was collapsing, it was Urahara who helped to save her life. He'd spent decades researching hollification cures after the Vizard incident. He knew how to stabilize her condition by having Isshin sacrifice his Shinigami powers and bind his soul to hers. Without Urahara, Masaki dies, and without her, there is no Ichigo. Both Aizen and Urahara helped to create the protagonist of Bleach. Now, speaking about Aizen and Urahara, they aren't entirely opposites. In a way, they're reflections of each other that have been distorted by different philosophies that they both believe in. But these philosophies stem from the same revelation. Both of them discovered the truth about the Soul King. They learned of the original sin, how the 5 great noble families didn't just imprison an omnipotent being, but they butchered him, ripped out his limbs and organs, and crammed what remained into a crystal prison to serve as the linchpin holding reality together. The Soul King is a god that's been reduced to a powerless battery, and both of them had to decide what to do with that knowledge. Aizen looked at the mutilated deity and felt disgust, not for what was done to the Soul King, but for what the Soul King represented. He saw a supreme being like the Soul King reduced to nothing by lesser beings. To Aizen, this was an insult to the very concept of godhood. If those in power are so beneath him, then the only solution is to seize the throne of God for himself and to make sure that he never meets the same fate as the Soul King. Urahara reached a different conclusion after learning about the Soul King. He understood that destroying the current system without a replacement would mean the collapse of all 3 realms. Millions of souls across reality would be gone, so he accepted the status quo. This isn't because he agreed with it or that he found it morally acceptable, but because the alternative was annihilation. This is what drives Aizen absolutely insane. Before he was sealed, he screams at Urahara with genuine rage. To Aizen, this is someone of equal intellect, possibly greater, someone who has seen the same truth, who possesses the same capabilities, but yet he does nothing. He bows to a corpse puppet masquerading as a god. Aizen cannot comprehend how someone so brilliant could choose stagnation over evolution. When Aizen framed Urahara for the holification experiments during the Tenback Pendulum arc and had him exiled, most people would have crumbled. Urahara's reputation was destroyed, his life work was stolen, and he was forced to leave behind everything that he had built. Urahara spent 100 years preparing for his rematch with Aizen. He established his shop within Karakura Town, the most spiritually dense location within the world of the living. He continued researching holification, eventually developing a vaccine that saved the Vizard from soul suicide. This is the fatal final stage where a soul literally self-destructs. He went on to create tools, developing countermeasures, gathering allies, all while he waited patiently. He himself famously quoted, "If I prepare 1,000 options, all I need is for one of them to work. So I make it a habit of preparing anything and everything that shows any kind of promise. That's just how I work." This truly defines his character. He doesn't fight the opponent in front of him, he fights the future. Because of this, Urahara has every contingency mapped out, thus allowing every scenario to be accounted for. When the Arrancar arc finally came and Aizen made his move, Urahara had layered traps ready to go. He sealed Aizen's Reiatsu vents with Kido that looked like a failed attack. He used level 90 spells as distractions while planting binding techniques. He coordinated with Isshin for combination strikes, and when Ichigo delivered the finishing blow, it was Urahara's seal that locked Aizen away forever. It didn't matter for Urahara if he was the one who won, he just needed to be the one who made winning possible. There's also a lot of Buddhist symbolism embedded throughout Urahara's character that most people never pick up on. His bankai, Kanonberaki Benihime Aratame, directly references Kanon, the most celebrated bodhisattva in Japanese Buddhism. A bodhisattva is someone who has achieved enlightenment but deliberately delays their own spiritual completion in order to help others through their suffering. They could transcend and reach enlightenment, but they purposefully choose not to. Urahara had the Hogyoku, he understood its power, and he could have used it to reshape reality according to his own vision. He could have easily gone down the same path as Aizen. The fact that Aizen needed to steal Urahara's creation because his own version was incomplete tells you everything about who was actually the superior scientist. But Urahara decided not to employ his Hogyoku for personal gain. He wanted to get rid of it, so he buried it inside the Gigai that he had given Rukia. Benihime, his Zanpakuto, likely references the Crimson Lotus jar that Kanon carries. Kubo constructed Urahara as the philosophical counterpart to Aizen's anti-Buddha archetype, where Aizen uses suffering as fuel for his own evolution, discarding compassion as weakness. Urahara embodies the decision to alleviate suffering even at the cost of his own potential. This brings us to Jinta and Ururu, who aren't just ordinary employees working for Urahara shop. The Can't Fear on World light novels confirm that they are artificial beings similar to Nemu but created by Urahara before Mayuri ever achieved the same feat. The sadistic noble Tokinada, who knew everyone's secrets, accused Urahara of something darker. He claimed Urahara created those children as potential Soul King replacements, that he was cultivating vessels to eventually free the current Soul King from his torment. But Urahara denies Tokinada's claims. His voice goes cold in a way that it rarely does. He tells Tokinada that if that's what he saw through his surveillance, then he has holes for eyes. But the accusation does linger. Is Urahara telling the truth? Or is this another layer of the mask, another secret buried so deep that even admitting it would unravel everything? What's undeniable is that he created life, two children who call his shop home. They possess strange powers that shouldn't exist in ordinary souls, and Mayuri thought he was the first to achieve artificial soul creation, when in actuality Urahara had beaten him to it. During the 1000-year Blood War arc, Yobak, the leader of the Quincy, who could see and alter the future itself, designated 5 individuals as special war powers. These were threats to the Quincy that were so significant that the entire Vandenreich needed to account for them. Ichigo was on that list because of his potential, Kenpachi was on it for his strength, Ichibei for his wisdom, Aizen for his Reiatsu, and Urahara was one of the war powers specifically for his unpredictability. The Quincy recognized his tactical genius. Later in the story arc, Urahara faces off against Askin Naklava. This is where he reveals his bankai Kanonberaki Benihime Aratame. His bankai ability involves restructuring. It can dissect and reassemble anything that it touches. On the surface, it's a versatile ability, but on a thematic level, it's Urahara's soul laid bare. The Askin fight is the perfect demonstration of this philosophy in action. Askin Naklava, the Sternritter whose death-dealing ability was able to manipulate lethal dosages of any substance, was determined that Urahara was too dangerous to defeat conventionally. It's for this reason that he targeted his eyes with a gift ring, forcing an instant lethal dose directly into them. Both of Urahara's eyes died. Any other Shinigami would have been finished at this point, but Urahara activated his bankai and restructured his own destroyed eyes. Blood trailing down his face, stitches running from his eye sockets, and that devilish grin spreading across his features as he explained to the horrified Quincy exactly what his power could do. Urahara Urahara dissected the damage and reassembled his eyes into a functional state through sheer force of will and the manifestation of his soul's deepest nature. This is Urahara's entire character compressed into a single moment. When the world destroys something essential, he takes it apart and rebuilds it into something that works. He's been doing that his whole life. The scientist becomes the prisoner, the captain becomes the exile becomes the mentor. Each transformation is a form of self-dissection as he cuts away what no longer serves the current purpose and stitches together what remains. This is why he's one of the most reliable characters in the series, and there isn't any situation that Urahara is thrown into that he doesn't thrive in. During the 1000-Year Blood War arc, Hiyori Sarugaki confronts Urahara after he sends Ichigo and Yoruichi to the Soul King's palace. She's furious. She accuses him of not caring if Ichigo and the others die as long as they slow down the enemy. It's a brutal accusation, and it comes from his former lieutenant. Urahara doesn't deny it. He deflects by saying it's for the sake of the Serete. But within the Can't Be Your Own World light novels, Urahara admits something telling to Yoruichi. He says that Hiyori saw through him. She recognized what he really was beneath the helpful mentor routine. This is his former lieutenant, someone who worked alongside him for years, who watched him operate from the inside. She literally called out his willingness to sacrifice others for the outcome that he needs. This is the necessary evil within the character of Urahara that most fans, even including myself, refuse to acknowledge. He put the Hokyoku inside Rukia without telling her. He knew that Aizen would come for it. He knew that she could potentially die as a result of this decision. He sent Ichigo and his friends into the Soul Society with incomplete information because the full truth might have changed their minds. It's no exaggeration to say that he gambles with lives that aren't his to gamble with because he's already calculated that the potential loss is worth the strategic gain. Hiyori's reaction to Urahara isn't irrational. This is somebody who's known Urahara for decades. She knows exactly what kind of person Kisuke Urahara is when the stakes are high enough. At the end of the Can't Be Your Own World light novels, Urahara articulates something that explains his entire philosophy. He agrees with Aizen that using the Soul King as a linchpin is fundamentally wrong. It's unacceptable. No being should have to suffer that existence for the sake of maintaining reality, but forcing change onto everyone before they've come to the same conclusion themselves is just as problematic. Real change happens gradually. You have to push the world toward a shift in perspective where what was once acceptable becomes unacceptable naturally. Then transformation occurs organically rather than being imposed from above. Aizen wants to be the one in control. He wants to sit on that empty throne of God and reshape reality according to his vision. Urahara wants to make himself unnecessary. He wants to create tools, leave them in the right hands, and then step back to let others complete what he has started. The irony is that both of them are lonely. Aizen surrounds himself with followers but never finds an equal. Urahara surrounds himself with friends but never lets them see the real him. They are both isolated because of their intellect. They have knowledge that can't be shared and it will burden anyone that it's transferred to. In his conversation with Yoruichi, Urahara admits that if he ever truly crossed the line, if he became the monster he fears he could be, he would want someone like Ichigo, Rukia, or Hisagi to stop him. Not Yoruichi, because she would be on Urahara's side regardless of what anyone else says. So the next time that you're watching or reading Bleach and you see Urahara fanning himself while cracking jokes, remember what's happening underneath the surface. Think back to his statement where he compares himself to a monster, as well as Hiyori's accusation that Urahara is willing to sacrifice anyone for the greater good. I mean, despite all of this, Urahara is still one of my top 3 favorite characters within Bleach, and a lot has to be said for him having so many parallels with Aizen but deciding to follow a totally different path. There is a lot of good within Urahara's character, even if he is so critical of himself. But yeah, we've reached the point of the video where I want to hand over the discussion to all of you. What are your thoughts about Kisuke Urahara? Did you know about all of these different snippets from Can't Be Your Own World where Urahara reveals his thoughts behind his actions in the manga? If there's anything that I've forgotten to mention about Urahara, then let me know by continuing the discussion in the comments. And lastly, thanks for making it to the end of this one, and I look forward to seeing you in my next video. A massive thank you goes out to all of my amazing Patreon supporters for helping to make this video possible. If you also want to support the channel and see your name in the end of my videos, then check out my Patreon, which has loads of perks like early video access and so much more. Thank you for sticking around till the end of the video, and whatever you contribute will mean a lot to me.